It was a disaster. It was horrific, loss of life. The ecological damage, I don't agree with our current assessment that only 25% is left. I think the ecological damage is going to last for many years to come, and that's most unfortunate. We can't let that tail wag our dog, but what I would do differently is all the options. I would have said yes to the Dutch bringing their ships over here. I would have said I don't care if there's a Jones Law or not. Let's bring the international health. The other thing I would have done is inspire the local governors, since it was their area, and ask for their assistance and their advice. In Louisiana, they wanted to build a berm. Let them build a berm. Protect their own resources, their own wetlands. If they wanted to set something up on the beach, let them set something up on the beach without having to go through 18 steps and 14 permits. That's why you and I can't even put an addition on our home today without taking 2 years of permitting process. There's just too much government. We can't afford too much government. What we need to do is get back to basics. We have to understand what our government is supposed to be doing, the 18 enumerated powers. And protecting our shores is one of them. Shame on them. Protecting our resources is one of them. Not debilitating our ability to get our resources, but to inspire the free enterprise to drill for more oil safely and let them regulate themselves, because if that spill costs them billions of dollars, then perhaps they wouldn't spill. But right now, the current law, they were capped at $75 million per loss. Well, why don't we put them into a private insurance pool that if they spill another drop, that they have to pay the premium, just like you in a car. If you have too many accidents, what happens to your premium? It goes through the roof. They can self-regulate themselves without the government getting involved. When the government gets involved, there's just too much corruption, there's too much graft and greed. And through a politician's vote, that's why we have the spills that we have today.
Well, I think that I wouldn't have a chief of staff that says that no good crisis should go to waste. I think we're going the wrong way. I truly do believe that they could have acted sooner and chose consciously not to, because they know that they can tug at our heartstrings when we see little birds and ducks and pelicans with oil on their feathers. So I did a little research right after it happened. In fact, I think I wrote a blog on my website right after it happened that why weren't they collecting the oil? Oil and water does not mix. Oil floats right to the top. One Norwegian tanker that I happened to read about, the Knock Nevis, it's the name of the boat, you can go home and Google it. It holds 4.1 million barrels of oil, which is 172.2 million gallons. One ship parked over that spill with skimming vessels could have collected at about 220,000 gallons a day, which is what they were calculating. 700, if you do the math, 782 days of oil spill fit in one vessel. Why didn't they do it? Why didn't they do it? So, how do we do it? Well, I think one way is to have more regulation. Get into our pockets so that we will demand, yes, we need to regulate the big bad oil companies. That's what they were looking for. And I believe that we as a nation, we know what's right. We know how to run our businesses. We don't need government regulation telling us how to run our businesses. We need to get out of the way. So I think that had the oil company, BP, wanted to get in skimmers in there, they should have been allowed to do that. But I think the government chose not to do that. So I would have handled it by allowing all of the technology and all of the resources to come in and take care of what they do, and that's do business. They've had other spills in the Gulf. They've had spills in the Middle East, and they've picked them up by skimming them right away. They've never worked it.
Well, the first thing I would have done as President of the United States was sign an executive order to overturn the Jones Act. For those of you that aren't familiar with that, we had several nations call us in the first week offering to bring over super tankers, and our president denied it. So many of us will say, well, it has to do with unions. And I would agree with that as well. But as a leader, he did not act like a leader. Our Governor Jindal of Louisiana showed more couth, more strength, and more willingness to do something than our President of the United States. I also, as your Congresswoman, I wouldn't have did what Debbie Wasserman Schultz did. Used it as an I told you so moment. When she was in the legislation for Florida, she said she was opposed to offshore oil drilling. So instead of showing leadership both by our president and our current Congresswoman to stand up and to do the right thing and show that they have the ability to react to solve the problem, they used it as a moment to beat up on a company like BP, which many American people work for. Many teachers' union salaries are tied into the retirement plans of a company like that. Leadership would have come together, realized there was a problem, worked together with BP, and solved the problem. But instead, all this administration continues to do, as they did in the oil spill, was point the finger and put blame, and not show leadership by going down to the Gulf, but taking a vacation in Maine. Instead, he should take his family to show we are united as a country. We stand by the people in the Gulf Coast.